Coming up, Dariq Whitehead goes off and the Brooklyn Nets win over the Pelicans. What does it mean for this young gentleman as he heads into an offseason and the Brooklyn Nets look to reshape their roster? We dive in coming up next.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, my friends, it is the Locked On Nets podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. He's Doug Norrie. I'm Adam Marbeck. We thank you, as always, for making us your first listen of the day. We're 100% free on all those great platforms and let you know that we're talking about one Dariq Whitehead. Last night, the Brooklyn Nets got a 119-114 victory over the New Orleans Pelicans, one that the fans can just enjoy because the odds aren't really going to shift at all in terms of the draft. But coming off the bench, Doug, 25 minutes, 5 of 9, 4 of 7 from beyond the arc for Dariq Whitehead, 14 points to go along with a couple of assists, a couple steals, and a couple of rebounds as well. Nice little performance for the man who we've been wondering if the end was coming sooner than we all would hope.
Yeah, I mean, look, we said like this, we're going to learn something from him, and we were going to know to some degree like what the wrong thing would look like, and this would maybe still constitute a wait and see, but he could probably make some inroads into like how things could look for him at the NBA level. The last 3 games have been really good, right? Like 26 minutes a game, 14.7 points, shooting 50% from 3 on 8 attempts a game, by the way. And those are just numbers that you really like to see, and so I think that this has been very, very encouraging. I think that like a strong showing here at the end of the season means that it's maybe like no G League to start the year, like a strong showing here with no injury setbacks. And there haven't been. Like there's been no injury setbacks at all for him this year, which is really good. He's looking stronger and quicker than he did when he first got on, which is to be expected, right? Like he's a year removed from the foot stuff, excuse me, that kept him out last year. And it's starting to just look a little more comfortable and a little bit more in rhythm. And I think that's like as encouraging as you can get. I mean, it's a 20-year-old guy. We already know he was one of the top prospects coming out of high school. Injuries totally had everything go sideways at Duke, had everything go sideways in the first season. And he just might be like coming out of a 2.5-year recovery. I mean, it really is like that long since like I'm pretty sure since the first foot stuff crept up on him on Duke. So it's been super encouraging. I'm still waiting and seeing on this because it's not like I can never just be so bullish on this stuff. That's just me. If you're buying Dariq Whitehead stock right now, I totally get it. But these last 3 games have been exactly what you want to see from him.
Yeah, listen, we always talk about this with young players. You can make things feel worse. You can make it feel like the prospects of your next season are going to be a lot more difficult for you. Or even if the sample sizes are small, you can give the fan base and certainly us the idea or the sense that, hey, this thing's going to go in the right direction. We went through this with Noah Clowney at the end of his rookie season, got up there, saw this really big sample size, went and had an episode. You can go check it out from last week where we talk about this second year for Noah Clowney looked very different than maybe we anticipated. And yet we like the developmental track that he's on. The unfortunate thing for Dariq, as you said, the injuries have been there coming out of high school, coming out of college. And so it very much for a guy that probably would have been certainly a lottery pick, top 10 kind of talent. Yeah. That was the prospect that he represented. He fell to the Brooklyn Nets. And at the time of the draft, I think you and I both agreed, one in age for both him and Noah Clowney. And then the other part of it was because of the talent, because of the prospect that he was, it was totally worth it to take a swing on him when they did the draft and say, this doesn't work out at all. If we never see Dariq Whitehead at the NBA level, it's okay because you think you are spiking lottery level talent in the 20s in terms of the draft. So the fact that we're getting this kind of flash from him is really encouraging that at a minimum, we can maybe go into this offseason and next season saying, this is now the start of what a healthy Dariq Whitehead, who could have been in college for the last 2 seasons, but by all measures, and waited to come into the draft, it probably pans out for him with the way these next 2 draft classes look like to already be in the NBA, already be in an organization, and already seemingly getting an opportunity here to prove that he can be that type of player.
Oh, we've been very consistent about even from the beginning of that this was a clear pick at that point. Right? Like it was a very clear pick based on high school pedigree. You're picking in the 20s. These are like just the kind of guys that you take a stab on just because if you can pick a guy, if you have a guy in the 20s who would have a year before gone top 5 or something like that. And there was injury concern, which pushed and this, like, the time at Duke didn't look great either. Like, just wasn't just the injury. Like, he was injury plus his time at Duke didn't look amazing. So there was some more context, but it's like one of these things where, okay, well, injuries pushed him down. A good example of this was Gigi Jackson too. It was like, okay, Gigi Jackson was one of the top high school players, went to South Carolina. It was a kind of a mess, and he dropped to the second round. And it's like, oh, the pedigree was all the way there, and he's looked like a very competent NBA player. Yeah. So if you draft based on sort of perceived upside, but some other context had you fall, if you're in the 20s and drafting, like, that's just exactly who you should kind of take a stab on, like, because the track record of picks 20 and below just isn't very good for good reason. Like, most teams are really good at evaluating these guys, and most times you pick there, it's like they don't really turn into NBA players because these teams have gotten really good at these evaluations. The ones that sometimes stand out are other context has had you fall, injury, which injuries happen and they usually cascade. And usually if you're hurt, especially in your feet, you kind of just stay hurt. Like, unfortunately,
right.
It's not like ACLs and stuff like this. It's like feet and back. Like, it's really kind of hard because they just cause other injuries to other stuff later. So I get the context of why he fell, but at the time, total no-brainer to do it, I think. And if you remember too, I don't know if he's still there, but the doctor who was doing his foot surgery was the Nets like team doctor. I'm pretty sure. And so
yes. During the draft process, what I remember we talked about at the time was, well, if anyone's gonna know whether or not this guy has the ability to recover from this injury and be successful, it's gonna be the doctor that's been looking at performing and taking care of this player pre coming to the NBA.
Yeah, well, and that, I think at the time, well, I don't even think, I know at the time we said we felt like that piece of news also lent itself to being more bullish on the pick, because we're like, well, who had a closer look at this, right? Who had a closer look than this guy around, what the long-term prospect was going to be around the exact thing that he hurt. Still scary, hurting your feet, medical news update. You need him to run. Like, because you step on.
I've heard those rumors. Yep.
Look, I didn't even go to medical school, and I know that. So that's just
it's impressive.
But this is kind of the high level analysis.
Didn't even need 7 years. Just kind of went with my instincts on this one.
Your feet are the thing you put like in front of you to locomotive walk and run, and that's kind of what you need. But no, when we knew that other piece of information, we were like, oh, okay, this even makes more sense because they have a firm belief that this is going to get better. It's been a very slow. It's been slow to come around, but I think there's a chance that he goes into next year without an injury, and we see maybe even the return of the athleticism, the burst. I don't think that's all the way there still, but
no,
I think there's a world where it could come around, and if it does, the Nets clearly have something, in possibly a huge way.
Yeah, coming up here in a second. How huge could it be to have another 20-year-old player that you feel like can be a part of your young core, along with Noah Clowney and the 4 first-round draft picks that you have in this upcoming draft? We'll get into that here in just one moment.
All right, this is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back then, waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now Taxes is matching with the TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on the progress so you can focus on your day. An expert will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy, all so you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now, this is taxes. Get an expert now at turbotax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service, real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guaranteed details at turbotax.com/guarantees. And when you're done with that, head on over to our friends over at Prize Picks. Look, baseball season is in full swing. No better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. Look, with Prize Picks, you're not wrangling salaries. You're just going more or less on at least 2 player projections. Right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. You heard that right. Whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, first inning runs, Prize Picks keeps every game exciting. Maybe you want Aaron Judge for more than 1 home run, Shohei Ohtani for more than 1 stolen base. This is as easy as it gets. Like I said, you're just picking at least two projections. You can scale it up from there. Fast and simple. Setting a lineup takes less than 60 seconds. That's less than a minute for all you math majors. When you win, your payout is quick, safe, and secure. You can even take advantage of Taco Tuesday. I mean, there's too many good things to read here with this Prize Picks thing. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
All right, as we continue today's Locked On Nets episode, talking about the end of the season, which, hey, we've been having this discussion all year long. Is this going to be a long year? Are the Nets going to tank properly or not? And what are we really going to learn? Was it a wasted season? Well, we got a little more sample from Noah Clowney, and we felt like his development track is certainly a positive outlook. And now you get Dariq Whitehead. And honestly, before we even talk about, I do want to get into the impact of what it means for the Nets going forward. But I'm going to point it out because we discussed this the other day with the way that the fan base justifiably looks at the Brooklyn Nets organization, Joe Tsai, Sean Marks, and has nothing but questions about whether or not they did it the right way, the wrong way. And I mean every decision since the dawn of time. But I think to me, it's encouraging that the Brooklyn Nets called up Dariq White at the end of the year and he's performing well. That to me speaks to good process. Like, didn't pressure this kid around the injuries, probably made sure he's 100% healthy, tried to give him as long of a runway at the G League level to have some positive stat lines. And remember, there's a guy that at G League was still shooting underneath 33% from beyond the arc. So it wasn't like the numbers weren't jumping off the screen stat lines for him. But at the end of this year, they brought him up, and you're getting a really positive sample size now that probably, if you're Dariq Whitehead, we say, like, NBA players don't lack for confidence, but this kid probably needs every ounce of confidence going into this offseason so he can use it as a launching pad. This isn't me. I'm not patting the Brooklyn Nets on the back, but hey, you took a shot on the prospect at the right spot in the draft. You were willing to wait basically 2 full seasons before giving him a chance here at the end of the year. It looks like it's panning out. And that's really a really good sign for Dariq Whitehead.
Yeah, totally. I think so too. I mean, I think it was very easy to not press him to come up during this.
That's why I say you can't overvalue the Nets decision making when you go, it's not like we need to play him. And you could even maybe make the case they didn't want, maybe we don't want him to come up and really start popping off here at the NBA level. This could be this is the classic sneaky, how do we tank without tanking? Maybe we bury some of our young talent longer than we need to.
Well, I mean, from that point of view, they could have brought him up because the G League stats weren't that good. Like it wasn't like Drew, like for instance, Drew Timmy was crushing the G League. And so like the stats were ridiculous, and it was just it was probably just getting kind of easy for him. Now it comes up to the NBA and it's kind of just like hit or miss, which is another good example of that there is a massive gap between what happens in the G League and what happens at the NBA level. It's like huge. And I just really can't ever overstate that. It's like there's just a massive difference between the guys playing at the very highest level and one step below, which is always why it's a joke. It's like, oh, what would happen with these guys if they played at college teams? They'd win 100 to 10. It wouldn't be close. It wouldn't be close. And there's just such a massive gap between the talent when you get into the 0.01%. Anyway, long story short on that is if Dariq Whitehead's, if you were translating his stats from the G League to the NBA, there was no reason to call him up unless you kind of wanted to tank because it just didn't look very good. Now,
and in the process, maybe end up hurting his actual, possibilities of developing well if you just throw him out there and basically get him butchered for 40 games this season, right?
Exactly. And I know everyone's always crying about, well, they're not developing players, and if like a guy doesn't play, it doesn't mean they're not developing, or someone was blocking their path. Like those are very silly statements from people. I sometimes those get thrown out as blanket statements around like the only way you can develop is like walking onto an NBA court. For some guys, it would just be not a good idea a lot of times to go it's too fast. You're going to be overwhelmed. If you're not crushing the G League, you're just not going to crush the NBA. Like there's just it just doesn't work that way. Like it just doesn't work. You just have to be able to really kind of really stand out at that level. So I don't think it was weird at all. And I don't think there was any development blockage. And I don't think it was wrong for them to keep him down there or anything like that. It's very obvious now why they would do it. End of the season, everyone's waved the white flag completely. NBA's become a total and utter joke on a night-to-night basis around who plays and who doesn't. So, yeah, all right, now we can all come up and play, and it's not weird. But during the season, I think it wouldn't have been – I just don't think it necessarily would have been a great idea. Now, when everyone has just kind of started their vacation a week early, like everyone does in the regular world with their work, and now the NBA players do it too. Like, yeah, now it's not weird to have him up there, and that's why it's really encouraging to see him play really well in the opportunities he's getting now.
Yeah, and then one other thing here, because I want to talk about what does it look okay? What's the lineup look like? Right, 4 rookies in the draft, and Dariq Whitehead and Noah Clowney. I want to take a look at that with a couple other guys. They're going to be decisions for the Brooklyn Nets this offseason. But the one other notable thing here, just when we're talking about his game overall, we said this at the time when we were talking about him as a prospect coming out of the draft. Right, 6'5", almost 6'6", but the wingspan 6'10". The defensive value for a team that has lacked size at certain positions, that maybe lacks a player that can, be a two-way type of talent for your roster. We think about, Cam Thomas. Listen, Dariq Whitehead's not sniffing Cam Thomas's offensive talent with what he's shown at the NBA level at this point. However, what he maybe lacks on that end of the floor in terms of career prospects, he does have a lot of upside value on the defensive end. That goes back to his time in college, goes back to his time as a prospect coming out of high school. So that's the thing coming up here in a second, that when you look at the construction of a roster, and while the Nets are going to go best player available across the board when we get to the draft, it is far more enticing of a prospect to look at the Brooklyn Nets next season and think about Dariq Whitehead maybe being in the backcourt instead of Keon Johnson. That's not to knock Keon Johnson. Also a tenacious defender, but also historically has never been able to shoot the ball consistently well, right? So reconstructing this roster, if you think about Dariq Whitehead and you think about Noah Clowney and the draft class, it becomes pretty exciting to wonder how fun will it be to watch a young team that will still likely lose a lot of basketball games, but at least we'll have a lot of players you can think about growing over the next handful of seasons. We'll do that here in just one moment.
All right, before we get to that, tell you about our friends over at DoorDash. NBA fans, get ready. You swoosh, they save. Thanks to Dash Pass. Every time a player drops 50 or more points in a game, you're going to score a huge deal the next day. Super simple. Any player scores 50 or more in a game during the 24-25 NBA regular season. You got to get on this. We got to watch these scores closely from here on out. Dash Pass members get 50% off and order up to $10 off the next day from noon to midnight. Look, you can take advantage of the deal game day feast, get in that 50-point performance, and get some wings, get some pizza, get some burgers headed your way from your favorite spot. Get those late night cravings. Maybe you want a little lunch on the go. Let's scoreboard watch, folks. Let's get someone to 50 points so we can get in on this deal. Look, sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save. When any player scores 50 or more in a game, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order the next day, up to $10 off. You got to use the promo code NBA50 from noon to midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders at participating merchants. Must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more.
All right, as we tie pretty little ball in today's Locked On Nets episode, talking about Dariq Whitehead and what it means if he can take the end of this season and turn it into a meaningful next season. So when we look at this roster now, first and foremost, you said at the top of the show, on the opening night roster for the Brooklyn Nets at the NBA level, you want to go full on here? Are you putting him in the starting lineup? Are we talking Dariq Whitehead in the backcourt? Oh, come on. See, look, he's always half pregnant with this stuff. He never wants to fully commit. Probably, by the way, it's worth waiting for the draft to happen here and see what other players come in and where they might slot in the roster. But if you're putting together the lineup next year, and we know that there's free agents obviously on this roster as well, but Dariq Whitehead in the backcourt, Cam Johnson, Zaire Williams. Think about Noah Clowney being there at the 4, right? Nick Claxton at the 5. Daron Sharp decisions to get in Watford. Listen, and then at the 4 other draft picks. I know they're still going to keep veterans around here, and Cam Johnson's under contract, obviously. But there's something really cool about having, 8, 9 bodies all under 23 years old, including the draft picks, where you just go, this is going to be a night over night where you get excited about an individual performance, even if the game results aren't necessarily going to be W's.
Oh, it's going to be a totally different season. I think they're still going to be really bad, but I think from a player evaluation standpoint, there's going to be much more meat on the bone next year than there is this year. I think this year, a lot of these guys, we knew it. They were placeholders, or they were vets on their way out the door, or they were dudes that the Nets we just need guys to play. So your turn, right? Like that was kind of the theme.
You go out and shoot baskets.
Exactly. I think let's assume Clowney comes back healthy here. Let's say Dariq is healthy going into next season. Cam Johnson and Nick Claxton already there. And then you add the 4 picks. Like those are guys that are going to two of them are probably going to, at least one is going to definitely be playing because it's going to be a top, 7 or 8 pick at worst. Jeez, cross your fingers here. And then the other picks, I will say probably one of them ends up being probably like maybe close to NBA ready. That's just a total guess because it's a very deep draft class. So now at that point, like you're already going to be in a place where we're going to be evaluating more future prospects for this team just out of the gate. We always kind of knew one thing that made it this season very difficult from this standpoint. Difficult is an operative term. From a podcasting standpoint, it was like the base level understanding that, yeah, we can talk about these guys. They're probably not going to be here. Like that's just the nature of the thing here. It's like we can talk about them and we can kind of dream on it, but they're all kind of running out on the contracts. They're free agents. Nets don't want to spend. Like they have a ton of draft picks. Who's really coming back here? It's just not going to be the case next year. These guys are going to be first round picks. They're going to be under contract for a few years. And we're going to be able to look at this and say, who's part of the real future here going forward. And so I think that like next year we'll just have a totally different tenor to it. I do not think he's going to start by any stretch of the imagination. So I don't think that's even really on the table. But overall, I do think we're going to look at next season in just a totally different light, even though I still think they're going to be bad. Frankly, there's a world where they're way worse next year because like they're going to play all these rookies and it's just so hard to win with rookies. Like one of the ways that they kind of treaded water this year was like they got some journeyman guys. Everyone's kind of like looking for their next NBA stop. They're all kind of these like functional role players. And then you got a couple of veterans, and that's why the tank didn't go exactly as planned, But I just don't see that being the case next year. There's just going to be too many young bodies to kind of like, I think, tread too much crazy water. Again, from the guy who got this season completely wrong. So take it with the spirits intended, I suppose.
Well, and that's also because I was going to say, like, not to disagree, but it'll be interesting to see how the draft unfolds, because if you instantly put in, as you mentioned, like D'Angelo Russell, okay, assume that he's not here. But if player X, it ends up being the lottery pick for the Brooklyn Nets, who's going to be in the backcourt and is going to play alongside Cam Thomas, and you're going to have Dariq Whitehead coming off the bench, and you'll still have Zaire Williams, you'll still have Trendon Watford. These guys have value. They don't have elite, necessarily winning games impact kind of value. And then you're still going to have Cam Johnson. Like, so, and Nick Claxton, obviously, the center position, maybe a couple of veterans.
What did you say, Cam Thomas?
Cam Thomas. So, like, assume your lottery pick becomes or not assume, but if your lottery pick becomes a backcourt pairing with Cam Thomas, and I specifically say that because of point guard role, right? If you're going to lose D'Angelo Russell in free agency, but you bring in a guy that you think is day one ready to be your leading point guard, well, that all of a sudden, at least at a minimum, I think I'll go into next season with similar expectations to this year. But I'll have all of this data input about how I feel about Jordi Fernandez, about the buy-in from the players, about having younger and certainly higher prospect talent at that point coming out of the draft. Now, even the best of rookies go through serious lumps in their careers. So to your point, you may just get games where all these guys that we're really excited about look absolutely horrific. And some of them, especially back into the first round, a couple of them maybe are going to be right up there playing at the NBA level. One of them might be at the G League level, right? We don't know how these players are all going to shape out, even inside of a deep draft class. But I'm going to stop myself short of saying they're going to be way worse than they were this year, because it would just be too Netsian to turn this thing around after everything that's gone on. Grab a bunch of rookies, have Dariq Whitehead hit, have Noah Clowney hit, and all of a sudden we're talking about 6 players under the age of 20 going out next year and maybe just having some fun and surprising a couple of teams a handful of times. And by the end of the year, we're talking about, a 25-ish kind of win team, maybe pushing towards 30 if they get things kind of clicking a little bit as they move along.
Well, look, we've done the podcast here since I believe it's 1952. I think that was our first year doing it.
And
so
a good one too. Yeah.
That was a good year.
Good
year for everybody. Good year for America. Good year for everybody.
Great.
But since we've been doing the podcast, I believe that I have gotten their over-under win total wrong every year. And I don't even mean I guessed the wrong number. I mean, I guessed wrong on the over-under. Whatever. Which also implies that I got the number wrong. But it wasn't even okay, you can forgive someone for getting the number wrong because I don't know, it's kind of hard to predict that. I'm just talking about just the over-under. I think I've gotten wrong every single year since we started doing this podcast. was wrong with the big three on the too high, was wrong in the year that they had McHale, and I thought they were going to try to play it out for their picks, or because they didn't have their pick. Wrong that year. Wrong this year because I thought they were going to be way worse. Wrong every single year on this. So I, at this point, do not think that I'm, and this is how you know I'm a sincere guy, I do not think I'm the best person to evaluate this particular thing. Plenty of other things to write about. This particular thing, the track record. Oh, by the way, as with anything you get wrong, I can give you 50 reasons why I was wrong. This is what people love this. People love to hear, yeah, I was wrong, but it was because of this, and this.
Yeah.
Even though people love that. So whatever, here's what you can take to the bank. I'm going to stay with believing, like trying to make my best evaluation and for next year, and everyone could just feel free to do the opposite. And Jim Cramer this thing like he does to the stock market, where you just have your anti-Jim Cramer portfolio and just absolutely print stacks of cash on it because the guy's wrong all the time. That's how I am with over-unders. Okay, we are going to get out of that diatribe aside. We're going to get out of here. you know the way to help the show. We've been saying this for weeks. It's so easy. Okay, say it with me now. You're going to go to Spotify. You're going to hit like and subscribe. Everyone knows what I'm saying here. You're going to go over YouTube. You're going to like and subscribe there. You're going to leave a comment. You're going to leave a rating. You're going to get on Fan Take Friday because you're going to leave a comment, preferably one that says something nice about Adam and I. Mm-hmm. And you're going to get on the show. That's it. Go and it's very easy. You're going to like and subscribe, leave a comment, and we're going to bring that comment, maybe a question, up on the show for Fan Take Friday.
You better believe it. But how about this one? You're wrong. And that's why you must be put down. And that is Oliver Bowden.
Who is it?
Oliver Bowden. Bowden. He's an author. He's written some things. Like Assassin's Creed.
Oh, okay. One of the all-time great, I don't know, whatever that is. One of the all-time great poets. We're back again tomorrow talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball. Oh, Assassin's Creed the game. I got you. One of the all-time great poets. We're back again tomorrow talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.
Great video game. Terrible movie. Basketball.